Hello and good evening. This is Donna from the LaSalle Public Library, welcoming you to tonight's virtual programs. Before we begin, let's talk about the upcoming programs. You can see on the screen that's up there right now, we are welcoming back Father Dominic, the bread monk, this Saturday at 1 o'clock for County Fair food. And if you just have a little bit of a sweet tooth, that's the program to attend. As Father Dominic puts it, it's great recipes for a backyard party or friends that you haven't seen for a while. They can come over now for an event at your house. And so try to join us on Saturday, 1 o'clock, Father Dominic, the bread monk, for County Fair food. A new program that we just put up for the first time tonight is Mary Anning on England's Jurassic Coast, the life and times of the world's first female paleontologist. This is August 3rd at 6 o'clock, and our presenter will be, once again, Claire Evans. Claire will be back. Claire spent much of her adult years in the UK and has an affinity for that culture. In 1799, Mary Anning was born into a humble family in the medieval port of Lyme Regis, and today that area is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So please join us for Mary Anning, Tuesday, August 3rd at 6 o'clock. And then a third program that isn't up there just yet is another one from our speaker tonight, Natalie Martin. Natalie will be back on August 17th, 6 p.m. for her long-awaited program, Cooking with Garbage. So if you are looking for ways to reduce, reuse, recycle everything that's in your kitchen, from pineapple cores to vegetable scraps, and try something new, save money and reduce your waste while making yummy food, be here on August 17th at 6 o'clock for Natalie's Cooking with Garbage program. And so with that, I am going to say tonight's program with Natalie Martin is just desserts. And with that, I will be shutting off my microphone, shutting off my screen, and welcoming Natalie. Are you there, Natalie?
I am here. I tried to turn my camera back on. There it is. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Tonight's program is about desserts, but I wanted to give everyone an update on my garden for those folks that have followed my journey this year, because it's had some ups and downs. That is for sure. I got things out too early. I got frosted. Things came back. So I had started like 15 tomato plants from seed, and had gotten them all out, hardened them, put them out in the yard, and then we got that late frost, and I lost almost all of them, but two tiny, teeny little tomato plants. And now one of them is so big, I should have brought a video or a picture. It is so big, you cannot see around it. It is probably 4 feet wide in diameter. It is 3 feet tall. It is ginormous. It is so big. So it started off, it was in the NICU, but we made it, kept it going. And it's going to have it's got tomatoes on it now. It's going to have all sorts of tomatoes. So I have some stuff that I grew in my garden tonight that we're going to use to make desserts. I've got some stuff that we're going to make here live on the program, and then I'm going to have some stuff that I made already earlier to show you guys. So I'm going to get jumping on here. And we're talking about desserts today only. So I hope you didn't spoil your dinner, because we've got lots of stuff today. I'm going to go through a little bit different. If you've done my programs before, I will turn my video off because I don't want to be distracting. I'll leave it on. You can be distracted by me. I'm going to talk about the plants, and then I will jump in and talk about and do the recipe for each one, because I've got some time sensitive stuff here since we're cooking on site. The first thing I'm going to talk about is something that maybe not everybody has heard of, and that is ground cherries. I bet they say that this is a picture of a ground cherry here in this picture, but I believe it's a tomatillo, because ground cherries are actually related to tomatillos. If you can see, this is a ground cherry from my garden. They're also called Cape gooseberries, husk cherries. They are in the tomato family. I want to see what this chat box says. Someone is having a hard time hearing the seminar. Stan, or if you are Stan or person, try turning up your volume on your computer, because I think I am loud, if everybody can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you cannot. Try turning up the volume on your individual device. That might be the thing. Okay. All right, so this is a ground cherry, and it has this papery husk on the outside. I'm gonna pull it off, and on the inside, it's this tiny little berry. And these berries they taste like a combination between a pineapple and a grape, I think. Like, if I was gonna describe it to you, I mean, they're very good. They're gonna have a crunch like a grape, like an outside husk. They're gonna they're the tiny little seeds. I'm gonna try to bite one in half here and show you the inside. If you can see the inside, it's got little seeds on the inside, just like a tomato. And they're just really interesting. You can use them to make salsa. You can use them to make fruit dishes, things like that. Oops, I'm going backwards, sorry. All sorts of things you can do with them. You can put them in baked goods, but what we're going to do tonight with that, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So talking about how they grow, they're very, very interesting. They're so weird. They grow like sprawling on the ground in a little bush, kind of like how, like if you imagine a tomato plant, but instead of growing up vertical, it grows out to the sides. And then just like in this picture, the ground cherries, they grow in a little tiny bloom, and then they grow and they have this green husk. And then when that husk gets dried out and papery, that's when they're ripe. And they like, you can't really, it's not hard to get it. It's easy to tell when they're ripe. I'll do this the simple way. It's easy to tell when they're ripe because they're almost just fall off right in your hands. I was actually able to get some off of the ground. You know, sometimes you don't want to harvest things from the ground because bugs have started to get into it, but I go out and check every day. So I know it hasn't been too long, but if I can, they have this papery husk that helps protect them from bugs and stuff like that. So, so the stems will just weaken and they'll fall right off in your hand or onto the ground. They do require kind of a lot of space. I'm growing mine in a raised bed, but because they are sprawling, kind of similar to a squash, you will want to plan, 2 to 3 feet per plant, but you don't need a ton. I would say I'm going to be getting about 100 ground cherries per plant. They're just getting going right now. I harvested this many. They're already mixed with sugar, but you can I harvested this many so far this season, starting maybe 2 weeks ago. And so there's still more coming. Probably 100 per plant. So for a family, 2 plants, 1 plant is probably enough if you're not going to eat them. You can snack on them just raw, just like I did tonight. So they're really, really nice. They do require, just basically because they're a relative of a tomato plant, a lot of the same growing instructions that you would have for a tomato, you'll have for a ground cherry. They're really neat. I just grew them just to see this year. And they went really well. I grew them from seed. And you can get them, these are called, the variety that I'm growing is called Aunt Molly's ground cherries, I believe. But what we're gonna make tonight, I'm gonna hide my screen share so that you can have a bigger screen. But what we are making tonight is compote. And a compote is similar to a syrup, except it has chunks of fruit in it, similar to a jam, I guess, like a runny jam. So what I have in this pot, in this bowl, is sugar, lemon zest, ground cherries, some vanilla. You can put whatever spices, like seasonings you want in it, like if you had ginger or something like that. It's really up to you. I wanted to keep it simple because I wanted the ground cherries to really show up. And it seems like a lot of sugar, but when you're making a compote, you do have to make it kind of like a jelly, and that's what's going to help preserve it. I hope everyone can see everything okay. I don't see anything in the chat, so let me know if you can't. It's going to be a little tricky I'll try to tip it and show you. But so what we're going to do, we mix the sugar and everything. It's all sitting in there, and we're going to cook this. We're going to cook it just like you would do a jelly. Let's see if I can get the rest of this sugar out of here. I'm going to put it in, I forgot to put it in the chat. I'm also going to add some lemon juice. So this is another thing. If you have a lemon tree, we have a lime tree that we have in our house. And you can see I'm squeezing my lemon upside down almost, but that's to keep my seeds. You can see my seeds hang out on top when I squeeze it upside down. So then I don't have to fish out the seeds later on. And I'm just going to do a half lemon because I took the recipe and I quartered it because I didn't have enough yet. You could also put herbs from your garden. in here if you had herbs that you grew this year. That would work really well. And then I'm going to take just a little dash of water, like a tablespoon or two. And that's just going to get everything wet so the sugar doesn't caramelize, because there's going to be a bunch of moisture that comes out of these berries, and we don't want it to be too wet because that'll make it take longer to cook. So I'm going to get my hot plate on here and we'll get going. I was going to get this started and let it cook while we're doing other stuff, so that hopefully by the end of our program tonight, I have something to show you that's cooked all the way through. So that's why we're doing things a little different tonight. So I'm going to get my hot plate moved over to the side here so I don't accidentally just burn myself. I can't be trusted. So that's going to be cooking. I'm going to cook it until it comes up to a bubble, to a boil. And then I'm going to turn it down and simmer it. And it looks like I've got somebody in the chat. Oh, perfect. Thank you. I'm hoping it will be good. A lot of times ground cherries can be a lot more yellow. Mine never really got that yellow. So I will put up the picture of the finished product here. Sorry, I have a big monitor that if you ever look at me and it looks like I'm up staring up at the sky, it's because I'm looking at my big monitor. So this is going to be what our finished product looks like. Looks like I clicked on the wrong screen. New share, screen 2. Are you looking at my picture of my screen? Sorry, everybody, it's giving me a thing. If you can't see my screen, oh good, paper. Thanks Donna. It's telling me I have 2 screen shares. I can switch back and forth. This is all very fancy. Someone in the chat, Barb, is asking that she's never heard of ground cherries and can you substitute? Yes. Anything can be a compote. Regular cherries can be a compote. Basically, you're just taking a jelly, and instead of straining out the fruit pieces, it's going to be like a liquidy jelly. And in this picture, you can see that the ground cherries are on top of a toast. So that would be like a cream cheese or a goat cheese on top of like a whole wheat toast or sourdough. And then you would have this compote on top, and so it's kind of this gooey. It's similar to kind of a chutney, but maybe without as many spices. So really, you can do a compote with any berry, no worries. But I chose ground cherries because I wanted to try to use something new, exciting, something you've never maybe seen before. Ground cherries can overwinter, but usually a little farther south than where we are. So what I'm going to try to do is put some hay bales, spread out some hay on top of mine to see if I can insulate them, hoping that they'll come back next year is what I'm hoping for. The next thing that we're going to talk about, I'm going to switch back to this screen share. I hope you're seeing it again. So this, I already had a picture up in my slides. But really the only thing that you really need to grow in your garden to make that ground cherry compote is ground cherries. And like I said to Barb, you can use any other berry to substitute. And you can also use any other sweetener, although like a grainy sugar is going to give you the probably the best. It's not going to burn as fast as like honey or things like that. So, but if you are, watching your glycemic or something like that, you absolutely can try to use your favorite sugar. This is my first time using my hot plate, you guys. I should have practiced. Maybe this will be a very exciting Natalie Caught Things on Fire program. I hope not. Dana would not invite me back. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is strawberries. I don't think we talked about strawberries yet on this program. I have been growing strawberries for 6 years now. I have the same plants that I had from the beginning. I've transplanted them. I've moved them around. They are now in their 3rd home, and they just keep coming back. And this is not, when you're thinking of commercial strawberries, I only really know this because my mom works for a chemical fumigant company that does the fumigations for strawberry plants in California. But the normal strawberry plants are planted every year and harvested every year, and they have new plants every year. But there are perennial and plants, and there's 2 different kinds. There's everbearing, which is going to keep flowering throughout the year, and then there is spring bearing, and those are going to have one big harvest, and then they're just going to be dormant the rest of the year, and they're putting all their energy into making fruit, propagating for the next year. Strawberries will spread. They have little feeler guys, daughters that come out and plant themselves. We started with, I believe, 4 strawberry plants, and we have probably 50 or more now. So when we harvested strawberries, we probably had 5 to 7 pounds of strawberries that we harvested from just our one 4x4 plot. They're kind of packed in there, but they just went crazy. So we made jam and all sorts of other stuff. And the thing that I'm going to show you that we made, I'm just getting distracted. I'm so excited about the food, you guys. We made, I want to try to show you my compote. I don't know if you can see it. It's starting to bubble. I'm going to keep it on my hot plate. I'll move after we talk about strawberries, I'll move it back in front so you can see it and make my screen big again. Strawberries need lots of sun. They need lots of sun, and like I said, they will spread out. But you can transplant them with some success. So if they propagate and take over your planting area, you can take those little daughters. My husband just trims off the little leader stems, and he lets them get rooted in like a pot, and then trims the leader stems, and then we're going to replant those next year. But he's growing them in little individual pots while they're waiting, while they're getting bigger. And then harvesting, you know what a ripe strawberry looks like, just like in this picture. You want it to be fully red all the way around. Darker red, the darker the red of the strawberry, the sweeter it is. So if you have a lot of this white here in the middle, that strawberry might not be as sweet as other strawberries. Sorry, I'm just monitoring my hot plate temperature. So I am bubbling and boiling over here on my compote. So I'm going to turn down to a simmer the temperature. And what I'm looking for, sorry, I'm going to distract you. What I'm looking for with this as it starts to simmer is I want those ground cherries to start to burst. And that's when all that flavor is going to go into that syrup that I'm making with the sugar. It's getting very hot. Chill out over there. Okay, so what we made with strawberries, one of my favorite things that I made with strawberries, and it's very easy, is strawberry ice cream this year. Now this does require a little bit of equipment, so I have a cooler bag because I didn't want it to melt. But the strawberry ice cream is very easy, but you do need an ice cream maker to make it. But I have an attachment for my KitchenAid mixer. You can get a shaker one. I'll show you, there's ice cream makers come in all different varieties. This is the one I have here that is an attachment for my KitchenAid. You put this whole bowl in the like your deep freeze or your just regular freezer compartment. And then you pour the stuff in while it's running. If you don't have it running while it's going, it will freeze everything to the sides and your beater will not work. Ask me why I know that. I've done that every single time. I forget to turn it on and keep it on while I'm pouring, and every single time it freezes to the side and I have to chisel it away. A couple other varieties of ice cream makers, both of these kinds on the side. This is a crank top, so you would have ice in this canister, and then there's a central canister inside, and you would be churning it, and that ice on the outside, it's kind of like a cylinder inside a bigger cylinder and ice all around it. So you're churning that ice cream, moving it with your arms. And that's why, it's maybe a little more affordable because it doesn't have any motor parts or anything like that. And then more labor intensive here is you have this central canister, and all around this outside ball area is going to be ice, and you'll shake it. And instead of having this rotating part in the middle, you're going to shake it like this. A lot of folks will have one of these and they'll take it camping or things like that. And it's a really fun thing for kids to do. And you can roll it around on the ground, and you can kind of just, as long as it keeps moving and you keep plenishing the ice, you will get ice cream as you churn it up. You can also make ice cream with like a small Ziploc bag inside of a bigger Ziploc bag, and you put ice cubes and rock salt in there, and you just shake everything around in Ziploc bags. It's a very fun activity for kids. So there's lots of different ways to make ice cream. And then this fancy son of a gun down here at the bottom, it's going to be about $200, $200 to $300. And that's going to be just a really mechanical, it's got lots of different settings, ice cream maker. It's going to be an investment. It's of both space, counter space, and money. So just keep that in mind. But it's really fancy and nice, and it'll make great ice cream. My mom has a fancy one. I have the KitchenAid, somewhere in between. And you really can get just about the same results with any of them, but it's someone just might be a little harder work. But back to this ice cream. So this strawberry ice cream is the best strawberry ice cream I've ever had in my whole life. And I don't think that it was just because I made it. It's got a lot of really fresh ingredients. You make it with heavy whipping cream. You put a little bit of lemon juice for some sharpness. That's actually something, you know, we've got the lemon juice and the ground cherries. We're going to have lemon juice and lemon zest in the other dish that we're making tonight. That lemon just really takes that fruit and the acid in the lemon just brightens everything up. And you have so much sugar in a lot of these desserts that it can really be rich and cloying. And that acid really helps to kind of break up that cloying, overly sweet thing. Okay, after our strawberry ice cream, I'm going to show you this awesome compote and how it's going. So I'm going to scoop this up for you. Let's see. I will stop my share. And I will make this nice and big. And here's my ice cream, you guys. We've obviously eaten some of it. But strawberries, we harvested our strawberries. I'm going to scoop it into a dish. Back in, I'd say most of them we harvested back in July or June, late June, early July. And they, and so then, you know, we made some stuff with it so they didn't go to waste. That is one of the things about growing your own fruits and vegetables is you really have to use them fast. And using strawberry ice cream is a great way. But the way that you get these big chunks of strawberries, and it's going to be up to you how big they are. I used a potato masher. So I wanted nice big chunks of strawberries because I wanted it to be really strawberry forward. Some folks will put it in like a blender or food processor, and that will make it more of a puree, but it will also make it more liquidy. So I'll put in the recipe for both of those into the chat. So they have accommodations if you are going to puree it, you don't want chunks of strawberry. Maybe you have somebody in your house like I do who is like, no, there's chunks of things in this, and that would be helpful for them, but you will want to adjust your amounts of liquid. So this one, you don't have to cook anything. Sometimes with ice creams like vanilla ice cream, you have to put eggs in it, you have to make a custard. This one is literally strawberries, honey and sugar, lemon juice, whipping cream, half and half, and then vanilla extract. And that vanilla extract is just going to bring that like really like warm flavor to it, kind of like pancakes and things like that. You have that vanilla in that too. It's just going to make it just a fully well-rounded strawberry ice cream. So, but it's very fast, comes together very fast. And then you run it through your ice cream machine and you freeze it. When you first run it, it's going to be like soft serve consistency. So you could eat it right away, but then they recommend putting it in like a loaf pan or something like that, and freezing it for 12 to 24 hours just to get that hard ice cream consistency. All of those ice crystals in the milk and things like that will freeze and get that really thick, rich consistency. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. Okay, my hot plate is very hot. Hold on one second. I'm going to move it so you can see it. Who would have thought that this hot plate would have gotten so hot? What are the odds? Okay. Ooh. All righty. So let's see if you can see inside of this pot. It's bubbling away nicely. You can kind of see that you can't see any of those sugar crystals anymore. I do still have quite a bit of liquid, but that my ground cherries are starting to pop. So now the thing that I want to do is cook off some of this liquid. It's really beautiful looking, isn't it? It's just like really like jewel tone. It'll look amazing on that toast, or you could put it on ice cream. Oh man. And that would be really yummy. Okay, let me get this moved back out of the way. Let it do its thing for a little while longer. I think we will have fully completed compote by the end of this program, y'all. That's exciting. Okay, so that's moving right along. But yes, again, if you do not like ground cherries or you don't know where to get them, you can get them at Hy-Vee. They're not there all the time, but they do get them at Hy-Vee, and sometimes they're at the farmer's market. LaSalle Farmer's Market is usually on Tuesdays, I believe. Sometimes they will have them there and you can get them. But again, with a lot of things that are uncommon, they will be a little bit more expensive because they're not mass producing them like strawberries and things like that. So they will maybe be a little more costly, but they're fun. I mean, I like to try new things, new ingredients and stuff like that. We'll put my ice cream back in my little cooler bag. And then, so yeah, I would definitely recommend, I will put that ice cream recipe in the chat in just a second here. And then the last thing, I'm going to start my share again here. The last thing that we are going to make tonight is, hope my slides are back up, everybody. Let me know if they're not. It's going to be a peach crumble. It's not peach season yet. It's almost peach season, at least here in Illinois. And peaches don't always grow well in Illinois. You have to buy certain hardy varieties for them to be perennials. I can give you the exact variety. The exact variety is usually called Reliance. I'm sure that there are some other like commercial brand varieties, but look for hardiness to zone 5, 5A, 5B. We kind of teeter back and forth depending on climate change. So 5A, 5B is what you would want for that. So you can definitely keep get a peach tree for your yard. Some people already have peach trees. They do grow just like an apple tree in an orchard kind of setting. And if you're not familiar with like how to harvest peaches, they will start out very firm and then they'll start to soften. You can pick them when they are a little firm still, and then you can soften them in-house. These peaches are peaches that I put up from last year. So I bought a big case of peaches from the Country Kids Farm Stand on Plank Road. And I blanched them, which when you blanch something, you are dipping something in very hot water for a very short time, usually like a minute. And then you're putting it immediately in ice water to stop the cooking. And then after you do that, you can just peel the outside of the skin of the peaches right off. You want to take that skin off because if you are familiar with peaches, they have that fuzzy, thick skin. You don't want to freeze that. It's going to start to brown and rot. So you want to take that skin off. It's going to be very not great in your mouth when you freeze that. So make sure you take the skins off. But these I put up like probably 5 to 6 gallon size bags of peaches from one case. And I made some stuff, made some peach jam and stuff like that the day of. But what we're making today is a peach crumble. I'll finish really quick about plants. I get so distracted by the food, you guys. The peaches are going to take up a lot of space. They're going to be a tree. So you can get specific varietals that will grow vertically or dwarf trees that will grow really low. So just keep an eye out for them, but you want to make sure that you're buying a varietal that will be hardy to our zone. Most of the hardware stores and the garden centers should not be getting those unless they specifically mark them as an indoor or an annual, but they're going to be a little expensive. So you don't want to buy an annual peach tree because it also takes a little while for it to bear fruit. It can take 1 to 2 years after you plant them. So you kind of have to think about that. Same with apples and large fruit trees. It takes a couple years for them to get big enough and hardy enough to grow fruit. So keep that in mind. Tonight we are making a herbed peach crisp. So you can put whatever herbs you want in there, but you'll want to figure out, some people might like a tarragon because it's got licoricey kind of flavor. Thyme, rosemary would all be great. Tonight I'm going to be using mostly thyme, and I'm going to put some rosemary on for decoration. Herbs we've talked about a lot of times, but herbs are very easy to grow. Things like rosemary and thyme can overwinter, so you can keep them year after year in the same place. We grow pots of thyme and rosemary, and we can move them inside and keep them year after year, so they're great. But you want to, more of a aromatic lavender would also be great for this, but you have to buy food grade lavender. You can't just use any old lavender because they have food grade and like medicinal grade, things like that. So just make sure that you know what it is that you're putting in. And we're going to make an herb topping. So in this, I kind of combined 2 recipes. So unfortunately, I'm not going to share this recipe, but the main thing I wanted to show is that how to make a crumble, because it's not simple, but once you know how to do it, you can know what it looks like and you can play around with the recipe, but in this pan, I have a very unappetizing peach concoction. The reason it's so unappetizing right now is because I mixed some flour in there. Because I'm using a frozen product, it's going to have a lot more ice crystals and water in it, so it's going to leach that water out. So I wanted to add some flour to try to soak up some of that liquid, make it more of a jammy texture. You can also use tapioca if you have tapioca with frozen fruit to do that. I'm combining two recipes to make this. I'm combining a slab pie recipe, which a slab pie is like a pie that you make in a cookie sheet, like a rimmed cookie sheet. And then in this peach crumble, herbed peach crumble. So we have in that pan, I have peaches, those frozen peaches. I thawed them, I drained the syrup, and then saving that syrup for later. Saving it for, I'm not sure yet. I think I'm going to make it a cocktail syrup or a soda syrup with peach in it. Maybe peach ginger sounds kind of nice. So I can talk about how we do that in a little bit, but so there's maple syrup, peaches, lemon juice again, and then vanilla. Yes, vanilla in there. So that's that. You can do whatever spices you want. If you wanted to do ginger would be great in this, cinnamon would be great in this, but I wanted my herbs that were in my crumble to shine and not get distracted by the spices in the peaches. I use maple syrup. You can also use honey. You can use brown sugar. Some people use like a prepared, one of the recipes I saw used a salted caramel syrup, which would be really good, but you could also get that flavor from like a brown sugar. One of the other things to think about is if you're using a maple syrup or a honey product, it's going to be liquidy. So you want to make sure you are compensating with tapioca or flour or something like that. Another reason why I'm not sharing this recipe, because I just measure a lot of these things with my heart. And here's where I'm going to make my crumble. And I'm going to make it so you can see it. This is flour, sugar, a little bit of salt because we want to balance out that sweet. You want a little bit of hint of salt. That's why salted caramel is so popular, because you get a little bit of that saltiness, a little bit of that sweet. Also in this is the zest of those lemons that I used in there. And then there's some thyme leaves. You can use, like I said, you can use thyme or rosemary. I'm going to put some rosemary sprigs on the top as decoration. This is rosemary, and it has a juniper-y kind of smell to it. It's very, very strong. You will know rosemary as soon as you smell it. Almost kind of piney flavor. And this is thyme, and thyme is like little leaves, if you can see that. And thyme has, and same with rosemary, they have very woody stems. And so when I harvest thyme, so I'm going to flour all over, you can see it. You can see the woody stem. You want to remove that when you're cooking with it, whether you're cooking stew or baked goods. You want to take that woody stem off, because if somebody gets it in their mouth, it's going to be blech. It's going to be like eating a stick. So when I do is I have this, and I hope you can see it, and I take it and I just pull down the stem, and it just takes all of the little leaves off. So you can grab it wherever you want. You have to be kind of gentle, because you will break the stick sometimes if it's fresh thyme, like baby thyme. And then you can go through and pick off these other extra leaves here. I'm putting my leaves in whole. You can chop them up if you don't want it to be as strong of a thyme flavor and you want more of like just a hint of it throughout. So again, I'm going to take it and I'm going to drag it the reverse way down the stem, opposite of the way it's growing, because it'll pull all of those stems up, all those leaves off for you, and then you can discard that stem. The other option, especially if you're doing like a stew, is to put the whole stems. Oops, did I pause something? Oh, okay, never mind. I accidentally touched my touch screen with my flower hands. You can put the whole stems, like if you're making a stew, you can put the whole stems, you can tie them together in a little bundle. Someone might call it a bouquet garni, or like a sachet. You could tie it together, put this whole bundle into your stew, pull the whole bundle out when you're ready to eat it. And that way you don't have to track down any stems or anything like that, and you don't have to pull the individual things off. So the thyme leaves will eventually cook off of the stems and leave the stems tied together. So that's a little bit about herbs. Again, rosemary, it does have those woody stems again. These ones you can pull off the same way, but you can also just pull off the individual leaves. So we're making a crumble. And if anybody has made a crumble before, you are going to need to add a fat in order to get that crumble to happen. And I'm using butter for my fat. You could use a flavorless, like a coconut oil kind of thing, if that's what you do. You want it to be cold. Unfortunately, I'm in a hot room, so this is not as cold as it once was. Freezer butter is great. I left it in the fridge until right before this program, but I'll show you a couple different ways to make it. You can do it in your food processor. If you have a food processor, you can do it in your mixer if you want to. I'm going to do it. This is a pastry knife, pastry blender. It's like it's almost like a bear claw full of blades, but you can take it and squish down into your flour and sugar mixture. And it's going to start to grab on to that stuff. The reason that I'm using a tool, you can use your fingers. The issue that you may run into is that the butter starts to melt. And so you don't get as big of crumbles. It would be more like a paste. Same thing with your mixer. It's going to just beat it right to heck. And so it's going to turn into more of a paste rather than a crumble. I like it to be nice and crumbly. So I'm keeping my hands off of it because your hands are so warm that it's just going to melt that butter right up. It's going to be super messy. Also, I gotta like touch my computer and stuff tonight. So, let's keep those butter hands to myself here. Sorry, I'm going to have to touch it a little bit here. As you kind of go through, you'll get, if you're using your pastry blender like this, you can use 2 knives, some forks too. It's another option. Pastry blender, not everyone has that. It's another one of those tools that takes up a lot of space. If you make a lot of pie crust or pastry, things like that, or crumbles, breadcrumb mixtures, sometimes people will get a lot of use out of it. It's not always something anyone needs, but supposedly you can use 2 knives, your fingers or food processor or whatever. If you are going to use your fingers, or potentially what I would do if it wasn't for this program, is I would put this back in the fridge, let that butter come back to cold, and before I put it on, that way it doesn't ooze down into the pastry case, into my stuff. So you can kind of see my crumble starting to come together. You can see it's crumbly. It's got big pieces of that sugar and flour and butter mixture. And you can add just whatever you want to it. A lot of times I'll make a crumble that's got oats in it. Oats are really great because they'll add like that texture and crunch and hardiness. You can add nuts to it. Pecans would be great. Almonds, really just whatever nut you would like. And then you're going to take your crumble and what I'll probably do is put this in the fridge before I bake it. But you're going to take your crumble and you're going to just pile it on. And this is my favorite part of any dessert. It's going to be that crusty part. It's going to have that saltiness. It's going to have that texture, that butteriness. I did mention I did have salt in this mixture. You can just use salted butter also if you don't want to add salt or you don't want to think about it. You can see those nice green flecks, or maybe you can't, but of thyme in there. So that's going to be really pretty. And I like a nice hearty layer personally of crumble on the top, get some nice crust. You can do like a double crust where you have a crust on the bottom and then a crumble on the top, kind of like a Dutch apple pie. That's great too. I'm going to be giving some of this to someone that has glycemic index problems. So I want to I'm already giving them a sugar crust on top. So I want to give them I don't want to have those extra carbs and extra sugar at the bottom. So there's my crumble. And then I would just pop that into a 425 oven until it's nice and golden brown, probably about 25 to 30 minutes. My hands all wiped off. Touch my screen with my butter hands. So that's kind of our crumble. It'll go right in the oven. It'll come out nice and crispy. And if I'm going to pop it, like I said, in the fridge, because I want that butter to stay nice and firm going right into it. As soon as it hits that heat, it's going to start to melt. The flour and sugar will help hold it together. But you want to, if at all possible, get as much of that butter to hold up. Sorry, I'm washing my hands in a makeshift hand washing station over here to hold together before it, so it can kind of start to brown. But that butter will also help it brown. nice and crisp up. Wipe my area down. Let's check on our compote. Try to wipe my computer off without clicking any buttons. So our compote is looking really good. It is, I think, pretty close to done. You can, if you're looking at it and it's starting to crystallize or brown, caramelize on the edges, you can add a little bit more water because you do want that. So you don't want it to burn. You don't want it to burn, but you do want it to start to thicken. And the more the water goes away, the better chance it's going to have of burning. So that's why, you know, you want to make sure that it has the chance to thicken up without burning and caramelizing. I'm going to let that cook for just a little bit more. We can answer some questions and we'll check in on it right at the end. But I think it's getting pretty close. I'm going to kick it up just a tiny bit to get it burned off a little bit, and then we should be good to go. It will thicken up more, you guys, as it cools. So keep that in mind. You don't want it to be a jelly. You want it to just be a kind of liquidy fruit mixture that you can spoon over ice cream or things like that, and that syrup will kind of run down. So it's really, really close. So that's kind of all I've got for you tonight as far as cooking. I hope that some of you guys will give it a shot. I'm going to do, while people think of if they have questions, I will talk a little bit about the University of Illinois Extension. If you haven't heard my spiel before, I'm a master gardener, and that means that I'm a volunteer who does educational programs about gardening and growing things in your own property. We also have a master naturalist program, and the master naturalist program is going to be learning and educating people about things that grow in nature. So that would be wildflowers, wildlife, things like that. We are all volunteers that are run out of the extension office in LaSalle. We will do free programs for you, for your guest patrons, for your group, garden group, anything like that. And you can contact Barb. And Meg has actually moved to North Carolina, so it's going to be Barb in the extension office, which is up here on the screen. And we can get you any program that you want. We can get you a cooking with garbage program where you learn how to cook with things that you were normally going to throw away. Well, thanks, Stan. Stan says that I should have a television show, but I don't need one because I have you guys. But I do love the education portion. My background is in environmental education. So being able to do programs like this is very fun for me, and I really, really love it. Again, I did mention that I do have somebody that I'm cooking for that is a diabetic. So there are accommodations that you can make with any of these. You can alternate the sweeteners. But my only suggestion would be that if you are going to alter a sweetener in any way, you may want to just do a quick Google about like strawberry jam with agave, strawberry jam with Splenda, whatever it is that you're going to do. Just to make sure that, oops, I'm just probably sharing, you can see all my files. I'm going to put our recipes here in the chat. You will want to just double check because the cooking temperatures can change when you are using an agave or something like that. And you just want to double check, you know, before you do that. I will just have to send these to Donna, and she'll have to post these files because it's not going to be fast, and you guys don't want to try to watch me figure that out. So we'll put them in like the show notes or whatever when they upload everything, and we'll get a link to them so you guys can make ground cherry compote and strawberry ice cream at home, and you can make up your own crumbles from things that you have in your kitchen, like weird nuts that you have in your freezer. That's usually what I do. Oh, those pre-chopped walnuts that you bought for cookies last Christmas, those would be great in a crumble.
There you go. We will definitely do that, Natalie. I do have a question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
How long will that delicious compote last in the refrigerator?
I mean, it shouldn't last very long because you're going to eat it, but I would say probably, I mean, I made a fridge jam that was similar ingredients, berries and sugar and acid, and it lasted 3 weeks without a problem. So the nice thing about things like jams and compotes is they're high in sugar, and that helps keep them preserved. That's why they have so much sugar in them. It should last pretty long, 3 weeks or whatever, but If you're worried about how long it's going to last, only make a little bit to start off because you want to make sure you like it. So I quartered this recipe. I only used, you know, I cut it in quarters instead of even in halves because I wanted to make sure that this is something I wanted to eat. It was a recipe that I wasn't super familiar with. Made other compotes. I've never made this one. So I didn't want to mess a huge quantity up, especially on camera. And then have a ton of it left over. So my recommendation, if it's a new recipe, start small. You can always make more later.
And I was admiring your saucepan. Was that new for this show?
No, it's not. This saucepan. Okay, so I'm obsessed with these pans. These are Cuisinart brand. This is not a paid ad, but these are Cuisinart brand stainless steel. They never stick to anything. They clean up really well. And this one has, I love this one because it has little measuring cup marks on the inside. So you always know how much liquid you have in there. The hot plate I've had, I got it for doing programs, but the pans they've been sticking around a while. Got them for my wedding a decade ago.
Wow.
I will show you my end result compote. I have a spoon somewhere over here. Spoon it up for you. Try not to burn my desk down. All right, guys. So we have some finished compote. It's going to be syrupy and gooey, and that syrup, you can see it's starting to get thick. If you want to ever figure out if a syrup is thick enough, you will coat your back of your spoon and you'll drag your finger up. I don't know if you can see it. It's going to create a channel. It's hard to see, but you'll draw the line up your spoon. If it fills back in, if that liquid closes that channel, it's not ready. It's not going to work right. If you drag it and that channel stays and it doesn't fill in again, then it's starting to thicken and it's ready to roll. So just tricks of the trade. Stan asked if a wok could be used. A wok or any frying pan is going to distribute the heat over such a wide area, and it's so shallow that what I would think is going to happen is it will cook all that liquid off before the flavor gets into whatever you had. So a lot of that flavor, that sugar, it's not going to blend together as much. So yes, it absolutely will work, but it may not be as flavorful because the nice saucepan holds the flavor together. Everything's cooking together, and it takes longer for that liquid to burn off. But it'll take longer, but it might be more flavorful. So it's just it's a balance. But that's a great question.
I love the tip about the syrup and closing in the line. I think that's exciting.
It'll talk about, you'll see it a lot of times in recipes if something's coating a spoon. So when you coat a spoon, that means that it holds, you can kind of see it doesn't run, it's running off a little bit, but there is some that is staying up there on the spoon. You can see the little particles. And then let me see if I can get, I'm trying to figure out a way to do this where it's not going to spill all over my computer. So as I drag up, oh, you can see that. You can see the line. You can see that it is starting to hold itself in a channel, and it is not, this is amazing, by the way. I just need everyone to know this compote is really yummy. And it is like lemony, and ground cherries are just a very unique flavor. And they're really hard to describe. It almost tastes like candy. So it's like if you made like a lemony, syrupy candy, and then you'll serve it on a little toast with goat cheese. It'd be amazing. So everyone should at least try ground cherries once in their life, I think.
Well, I think those are amazing. I wanted to just report on my garden that my
potatoes. Oh yes, please. And I know that somebody else said they grew an herb garden. I wanted to scroll back up and see what they did.
Which was successful because we've had a lot of rain.
Yes.
My potatoes, you know how I did mention when I still had my dreams of a garden that
yes,
I had a potato I didn't like. And
yes,
it's a good thing because I have the bumper crop of all potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't believe how I've never grown potatoes before, and they are just so different, fantastically tasting compared to store-bought potatoes. I mean,
well,
I just love them.
A lot of times when you get a store-bought potato, it has been on a journey. It has gone, it got out of the field, and then it sat in a truck, and then it got hot, and it got cold, and it took a trip, and then it sat in the grocery store, and it's still fine, but all that time and kind of abuse a little bit, it lowers its flavor, it lowers its quality. So yeah, when you can just pull it out of your ground and eat it, it's amazing. And this year, with all the rain we have had, it's either great if you have good drainage, or it's terrible if you don't have good drainage. We have been pretty lucky so far with our drainage, but we haven't had to water hardly at all. Have you, Donna?
No, we have not had to water, and my potatoes, like I said, are practically reaching for me as I walk into the house to come in the house with me.
Yeah.
The one thing though that I only have one plant that survived was my green peppers. And I planted many varieties and only one showed up this year.
So that was one of the other things that got zapped was my pepper plants. And I did have, I think, 3 or 4 of the original plants that survived that got put out there. So of those 4, I have 2 Aurora peppers, 2 Italia peppers, which are a red, like, they almost look like a serrano pepper, but they're red and they're like in between a serrano pepper, poblano pepper and a bell pepper. So they're gonna be a tiny bit spicy, but still be able to be used in like a salad or whatever, things like that. So 2 of those and 2 jalapeno plants. And those, we'll use for salsa and stuff like that. But yeah, we didn't have any that really made it this year either because of that late frost.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what happened to ours. And I don't have the bumper crop of tomatoes that I wanted, although I have plenty.
Mm-hmm.
And my watermelons are they're exuberant.
And all of those things, potatoes and watermelon, they're like 90% water. So any of those things are going to be doing amazing because they need all that water to make these great watermelons and stuff like that. So that makes sense that they would be doing good in the rainy season.
Looks like there's another comment in the chat.
Thank you, Stan. It was very nice. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for the compliment. I hope that it shows that I love doing programs like this. But Stan also was the one that has done an herb garden and everything for them is growing great too because of the rain. Yeah, the rain is a blessing and a curse, right? We have tons of mosquitoes. I don't know if that's been anyone else's reality, but our yard is chock full of produce and mosquitoes.
Oh, I have an adult science project I'd like to enlist you in between July 25th and August 25th. Just call the library, Natalie.
No problem. We will. Is it an iNaturalist program?
It's NASA Globe Observer.
Okay. Well, remind me. You know me, I forget, but I will absolutely do. But if no one else has questions, thank you guys so much for those of you that came tonight. I hope everyone took a little something home with them as far as something that they learned. And then we'll see you hopefully in August for Cooking with Garbage.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we will post the recording of this program and all of Natalie's recipes.
I'll send them right after this.
Saucepan. Thank you, Natalie. And
yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.